Now let's pause for a fact check. President Trump lost popular vote to the tune of 2.86 million votes. That's a fact. It's not an alternative fact. It's a fact. So I asked Senator Sessions at the time, do you agree with the president-elect that millions of fraudulent votes had been cast? And he responded, quote, I don't know what the president-elect meant or was thinking when he made that comment or what facts he may have had to justify his statement. Note that Senator Sessions didn't say whether or not he agreed, which was my question. Then I asked him whether he had talked to the president-elect about the issue, and Senator Sessions said, quote, I have not talked to him about that in any depth. Now, the Department of Justice, under the Attorney General's leadership and direction, is tasked with protecting the right to vote and with prosecuting fraud. So it seems unusual to me that the president-elect would make such a bold claim asserting that a fraud of truly epic proportions had occurred and that he wouldn't bother to discuss it with the guy he appointed to be the nation's top cop. But that didn't seem to bother Senator Sessions. I know you're looking at the time, but I was interrupted, and I would like to finish my remarks as everyone else here got to yesterday. There's only a few pages remaining.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't suppose this should come as a surprise, because another thing that didn't seem to bother Senator Sessions was the speed to which states previously covered by the Voting Rights Act moved to restrict voting rights after the Supreme Court's disastrous Shelby County decision. He and I discussed this at the hearing. The reason I brought it up is that claims of bogus voter fraud are routinely used to justify voter suppression. Claims of apocryphal fraud are what states point to when they pass restrictive laws. So understanding Senator Sessions' views on voting rights and understanding how he responded to the president-elect's outrageous claims of fraud, it's important as we try to figure out whether he is capable of protecting people's right to vote as Attorney General, to get his opinions on how people's right to vote. Senator Sessions has long been a critic of the Voting Rights Act. He voted to reauthorize the Voting Rights Act back in 2006, but every senator did. But when the Senate debated that reauthorization bill, Senator Sessions said that there is, quote, little present-day evidence, unquote, of states restricting access to the ballot box. He said the Voting Rights Act, quote, eliminated that discrimination. He complained that the Act's pre-clearance requirement unfairly targeted certain states. And he later celebrated the Shelby County decision, which gutted the Voting Rights Act. Now, when I questioned him about that during his hearing, when I pointed out that after Shelby County, states moved quickly to enact restrictions, he didn't seem concerned. Now, we discussed North Carolina, which enacted restrictions that the Fourth Circuit eventually described and overturned. They described it as targeting African Americans with, quote, almost surgical precision, and which prevented African American people from voting in the 2014 election. But all Senator Sessions managed to say was, quote, every election needs to be managed closely, and we need to ensure that there is integrity in it, and I do believe we regularly have fraudulent activities occur during election cycles. Senator Sessions believes we regularly have fraudulent activities during our election cycles. That might explain why he didn't talk with the president-elect in any depth about his claim that millions of fraudulent votes were cast. Senator Sessions perhaps didn't find it alarming because he believes there's a kernel of truth in that claim, but there is not. That claim has been fact-checked to death. Nearly 138 million votes were cast in the 2016 election. State officials found virtually no credible reports of fraud and no sign whatsoever of widespread fraud. In 2014, a comprehensive study examined elections over 14 years, during which time more than 1 billion ballots were cast, and found just 31 incidents of in-person voter fraud. But last week, after obsessing about how many people attended his inauguration, President Trump again claimed that he lost the popular vote because millions of undocumented immigrants cast illegal votes. Only this time, the president got more specific. It wasn't just millions of illegal votes. This time, he said it was somewhere between 3 million and 5 million fraudulent votes. I wonder how he came up with 3 million illegal votes. I wonder if it could have anything to do with the fact they lost by 2.86 million votes. This is beyond outrageous. This is profoundly disturbing. The president went on to repeat this lie on Twitter and on television before calling for a, quote, major investigation into voter fraud, including those registered to vote in 2 states, those who are illegal and even those registered to vote who are dead. Depending on the results, we will strengthen up voting procedures, he said. Now, President Trump tweeted that before he knew that among those registered to vote in 2 states are his chief strategist, Steve Bannon, his press secretary, Sean Spicer, his nominee for Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, his daughter, Tiffany Trump, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Nonetheless,
speed it up, please.
Okay. Nonetheless, President Trump later announced that he would sign an executive order related to voter fraud. This raises serious concerns. And before the members of this committee vote on Senator Sessions' nomination, we deserve to know whether the president intends for the Attorney General or the Justice Department to lead this investigation. When the President of the United States lies about the existence of massive, widespread fraud, it's the job of the Attorney General to call him out on it. The Attorney General has an obligation to tell it like it is. Senator Sessions may have said it best himself. When Sally Yates was nominated to be Deputy Attorney General, Senator Sessions questioned her during her confirmation hearing. He said, and I quote, "You have to watch out because people will be asking you to do things, and you'll just need to say no." Do you think the Attorney General has a responsibility to say no to the President if he asks for something that's improper? A lot of people have defended the Lynch nomination, for example, by saying, well, he appoints somebody who's going to execute his views. What's wrong with that? But if the views the President wants to execute are unlawful, should the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General say no? Last page. Ms. Yates responded, quote, "Senator, I believe that the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General has an obligation to follow the law and the Constitution and to give their independent legal advice to the President." And as everyone here should agree, that's exactly what Ms. Yates did Monday night, whether you agree with it or not. This nation owes her a debt of gratitude. But Chairman Grassley, Senator Sessions has not demonstrated that he is capable of fulfilling the same obligation. Before this committee votes to advance this nomination, it's important that we know whether Senator Sessions is able or willing to separate fact from fiction and speak truth to power. I am not confident that he is, and I will be voting against him, and I want to thank the chairman for his indulgence.
You went over